Good afternoon, everyone. Last year at the summit, a number of us spoke about Park Avenue, and it's great to see suddenly that impact policy. And I think this year is really the year that we can start impacting Penn Station. With a new administration, this is the time. I'm just going to dive into Penn Station. Our proposal from SHoP Architects was to talk not just about the station, but the whole neighborhood, and what this neighborhood could become by talking about it as Gotham Gateway, as a new place, a place not that everyone arrives and then tries to run away from, which is the condition we have around Penn Station today, but a place that's really a destination, that is a natural place not just to go and catch a train, but to go to do the things that we love in New York City. And so if you look at Penn Station today, it's unsafe and it's unwelcoming. This is more than just about the architecture of Penn Station. It's about the fact that the whole neighborhood is cruddy and it is unsafe. And we believe that if you make the right public investments in Penn Station, that investment will more than pay for itself because of the enormous value creation, which is essentially to double down on the model that we have at Grand Central Station today because of the great idea of coming into a train station into a new neighborhood with a new public space network that links over to Hudson Yards and the High Line. And one of the key things that we talked about is Madison Square Garden moving to the Morgan Postal Facility site. This can happen. It's an assembled, federally owned piece of land. We think it's critical to invite the garden to move there. The garden can realize all of their air rights as well as a brand new facility there that more than meets their needs and opens up Penn Station. We thought of this as kind of an urban bowl. For those of you who know the High Line, there was this whole air rights transfer that was done around the High Line in order to get the High Line to happen. Similarly, you could have a low area that is the station and parks and so forth with a ring of new density around it. An infrastructure that we call an infrastructure of opportunity in terms of a new garden, a new park, a new Penn Station, and new development. On the top, you see Penn Station today, a place where you can't figure out where anything is when you arrive, as opposed to this very open green section with air passing through it, light passing through it. And we decided to actually take over the block just to the south where Amtrak is planning new tracks and platforms, and looked at that square, that 3-block square. That 3-block square is actually the same size as Lincoln Center, but it's also smaller than most of the major train stations that are being built today, including the one in Beijing, including Waterloo and so forth. It is not at all extreme to say we need those 3 blocks for a world-class train station in one of the most important cities in the world. We decided that we should look at that in terms of having halls where you actually know where your train is. A Long Island Railroad train, an Amtrak train, a New Jersey Transit train. It's a crazy idea, I know, that you might know where you're going in Penn Station. We also took the security concern very seriously. We're taking security so seriously at the Trade Center site. Penn Station, I think, has to be looked at with that same firm eye, with an understanding that we shouldn't be driving trucks around Penn Station, and we should have proper standoff distances, which means great public sidewalks and plazas, like in front of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, so that you have a real graciousness to how you arrive in the station. And then when you get to the station, something that is uplifting, something that actually allows you to look down and see the trains, see natural light, as McKim, Mead, and White once had in the original Penn Station, and something that really lets you understand where it is you're going. And that's true not just for Amtrak, but for the commuter rail, for both Long Island Railroad and New Jersey Transit. And then in terms of the sequence of spaces, moving out, this is looking at 8th Avenue, back at the Farley Building, and what you can see in the image is not just that new portico from Penn Station and the Farley Building and a new park coming from the High Line, but Madison Square Garden. And what's interesting is we're the designers of the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. This is about the same distance from the train station out to the Barclays Center. It's wonderful to be able to come out of the train station and understand where the arena is instead of wearing it as a hat. And so this is looking back in the other direction. This is the park that comes down from the High Line, and you see the Farley Building and the train station, Jeff Koons sculpture. This is the garden itself sitting on that Morgan Postal Facility site. That site's incredibly important. It is the knuckle between Hudson Yards and Chelsea and so forth. And so this is looking at it from the High Line. And then in terms of looking at it in terms of the connections to the overall neighborhood. And I was involved with some of the planning for Hudson Yards. We always talked about Hudson Yards as Midtown West, right? It was Midtown moving west. Turns out it wasn't Midtown moving west, it was Chelsea moving north. It was all of the activity of the High Line, all of that wonderful residential that's going to be so important for Related, and it's connecting to Chelsea that I think is so critical in terms of making Penn Station work and turning it into a glorious neighborhood. We also looked at this in terms of not just the pretty pictures, but how do you implement it? We called for a gateway task force led by Vice President Biden with the governor and the mayor, through a series of steps of securing the garden's relocation, out to building the new train station, and then creating a transfer of development rights district that would help pay for all of this. And we think that you can largely fund it. I just want to close, because I have a minute left, to just talk about the fact that that's the hub of our city. And that's one way to be thinking about our city, and that's very important. But at some level, it's an anachronism in the sense that our train stations are very important, but we now have a different kind of city. We are now working all over our city. We're building office space all over our city. There are people who live and work in Brooklyn and come to Midtown Manhattan once every 6 months, unheard of 10 years ago. And so just to give you a glimpse at some of the things we're doing, we have these two projects right now, SEWARD Park at the base of the Williamsburg Bridge on the Manhattan side, the Domino project on the Williamsburg side. There's office space in both of these projects. If someone told me we were building office in the Lower East Side 10 years ago, I would have told them they had a very tight panty on their head. It's extraordinary what's happening in the city in terms of this. And so this is our SEWARD Park proposal that shows a lot of light and air and greenery, and again, that new office space. And then 50, 30, 20 affordable housing. This is going to house a lot of low-income New Yorkers. We think it's going to be very, very important in terms of the future of the city. I'm not going to go into detail, so I'm just not going to talk to these slides. I'm just going to give you a glimpse of what this will look like. We're master planning this right now. There'll be many architects involved. This is an underground market space that's being developed with a big light scoop. And then quickly, oh, and that's the new Warhol Museum. Quickly, across the Williamsburg Bridge at Domino, where there's a great streetscape that will be developed, a great park space developed by Field Operations, who's also the designer of the High Line. I'm sorry, couldn't hear you. The Domino Sugar Factory will actually be new office space. There'll be more people working on this site after this is completed than worked at Domino Sugar in 1960 by a factor of 2. Which I think is extraordinary. People will bicycle and walk to work there. The Walentises, our clients, have invited some very interesting, exuberant kind of architecture to be a part of this, to bring light and air back to the neighborhood. We've been very excited about developing it with them, and this is about to go through public approvals. And I'll just close with, this is the city that we could be. Not just with Penn Station, but with this wonderful new network of neighborhoods where people live, work, and play in a fundamentally different, more decentralized way, but it's hub this very important train station that we have to rebuild. Now is the time to work on Penn Station. I think our political class is there. I thank the Municipal Art Society and Vin and Jeannie for their leadership on it. Thank you very much.